Yeah. You play a couple different roles on this team, but one of the ones you're really sort of, staking your flag in is sort of our communities of faith outreach person, for lack of a better terminology. That there are, places in communities where there are hot spots around contentious political issues, and we know, over the past few years, things like LGBTQ issues, and now we've added sort of Israel and Gaza into the mix. And the question here is, as someone who is kind of mindful of how communities of faith navigate the political world, what role can these communities play in violence reduction around these explosive issues?
Yeah, that's a really central question. And to answer it, I think we have to go back a few years because what has happened is that the same dynamics I described, where people were sort of pulling apart or atomizing or getting siloed, has actually happened in many of the faith communities we've spoken with or tried to work with or are working with in our project. And those dynamics where a faith community maybe had people across the political spectrum involved, and then as contentious issues arose around the 2016 election and the two candidates, and then since then, you've seen a number of faith communities splinter, or faith leaders become concerned that in talking about how their faith tradition or their faith beliefs call them to live out their lives, and how that intersects with public policy, that those issues have become so sensitive that they run the risk of destroying the congregation or the community, or even causing the faith leader to lose his or her own job. So as much as I have felt that faith communities are one of the few bridging spaces left in our society. I mean, if you look at what's happened with the news media, if you speak to somebody who's politically conservative, you can guess that they get their news from maybe two or three sources. And if you speak to somebody who's politically liberal, you can equally guess where they get their news from. Or even political activity itself has become very fraught. But faith communities were a way where people across socioeconomic backgrounds and political backgrounds could come together. And we're seeing a lot less of that. So faith communities have a potential to play out a role in extremist violence in a number of ways. They can be, unfortunately, an accelerant if faith leaders are preaching or teaching in ways that their listeners hear as a demonization of somebody or a permission to go after somebody. They can be somebody who is a convener who helps people see their deeper humanity and connection to one another. They can be a place where their congregants will talk to them about their deepest concerns and their fears about their loved ones. One of the things we see in our project is a concern of people having their people in their family or in their circle become radicalized to violence or willing to use violence to achieve political aims. And it may be faith leaders who are sometimes in the most trusted position outside of family to receive those kinds of confidences. So I think faith communities really have a potential at this point to be an accelerator or a brake on the contagion of legitimating political violence in our communities. And of course, we want them to be the brake and find ways to seek common ground and not change people's ideology, but change their willingness to use violence as a tool to achieve their political aims.